But the WNBA All-Star Game ratings have come out, and all I could think of right off the bat was 4 little letters. F-A-F-O. F around and find out. You bleep around and find out what this league looks like without Caitlin Clark being involved in your biggest events.
A 40% decrease. Following the announcement of its All-Star Game ratings, the WNBA is currently staring at that disastrous figure. This is a nosedive off a cliff, not a dip. To put it into perspective, a typical season game with Caitlin Clark drew more viewers than the league's biggest event of the year. This concludes the experiment. The repercussions are already indisputable, and the league was warned what would happen if it neglected its core draw. The financial hemorrhaging has really just started in this tale of a predicted catastrophe.
The New York Liberty is playing the best style of basketball. They are playing the best basketball currently in the WNBA. And when they just had a nationally televised game on ESPN against the Chicago Sky, against Angel Reese, who was one of the biggest names in the WNBA, they had around 600,000 viewers, which is so low. You cannot make fans watch what they don't want to watch. But all we heard last year is if the fans were only watching the Indiana Fever, only watching games Caitlin Clark was playing in, then they weren't real fans and they didn't like basketball. And you just had so much media and WNBA personalities and even players just shunning the new fans.
The All-Star Game was only the beginning. Just over 2 million people watched the league's main event, its talent showcase, a startling failure that validates their darkest suspicions. But there's more to the rot. Since Clark's absence, the Indiana Fever's own television audience has decreased by more than 53%. The figures demonstrate a total exodus of the casual audience, not just a reduction. The WNBA was left in a state of darkness that it created for itself when millions of remote controls turned out the lights, not merely dimming them.
Fever Sky tickets dropped 71% on TickPick after Caitlin Clark injury. The get-in price for the Chicago Sky versus Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever game was $86. After Caitlin Clark's injury announcement is now down to $25. And you Angel Reese fangirls will still believe and think that Angel Reese is the reason why people are watching the WNBA. Since y'all want to make it about race, this white girl over here is the reason why fans are tuning in to watch the WNBA.
After Caitlin Clark's injury, Fever Sky tickets fell 71% on TickPick. Following Caitlin Clark's injury news, the get-in price for the Chicago Sky versus Indiana Fever game was $86. However, it has been dropped to $25. Additionally, you Angel Reese acolytes will continue to think that she is the main attraction for WNBA viewers. Fans are watching the WNBA because of this white chick over here, but you guys want to make it about race. However, the TV ratings were only the issue's digital ghost. Fans were voting with their wallets in arenas where the real-time financial bleeding was taking place. A planned matchup between the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever provided the most convincing proof. Prior to Clark's injury, a commendable $86 was the lowest ticket to enter. That identical ticket's worth fell by 71% overnight, to just $25, as soon as her ailment was made public. This was no longer a theory. It was actual, cold money. A quantifiable financial force was the so-called Caitlin Clark impact. Furthermore, the market vanished in her absence rather than merely cooling off.
You see, this is exactly what we were talking about. WNBA All-Star ratings are in for 2025, and it is down 40%. 40% from last year. That's bad. That is really bad. We already watched the ticket prices drop by more than 50% because Caitlin Clark was not playing. This is bad news for the WNBA.
So check this out. The game on June 7th, the tickets were originally $86. Same seats, now $25. After her injury announcement, 71% drop in price. Over 71% drop in price. Because she's not going to win.
So, how did the league cause this catastrophe? There were multiple injuries. This catastrophe resulted from an odd, self-destructive mindset that had been building throughout the season. For months, several players and media figures promoted the strange theory that the millions of new fans who were swarming to the WNBA weren't true fans because they were there merely to see Caitlin Clark. They were rejecting the very people who were shattering attendance records and packing the seats, rather than embracing the tide of new enthusiasm in the title. The league is now left wondering where everyone went while gazing at the vacant area where those phony fans once were. They went to a place where they were accepted.
So, if you consult the graph that I've just posted here, you'll see that nobody is watching the WNBA. That's the reason why the WNBA isn't making... Oh, sorry, I missed a few of them. So this is the reason why the WNBA isn't making any money, and they're not getting paid. It gets worse.
A far more serious threat was removing the league's stars from the court one by one while it was busy alienating its new audience. Although Clark was the first significant domino to fall, she wasn't the last. Angel Ree was soon put on the sidelines. Sydney Colson and Lexi Hall then perished in a play that appeared to have been entirely preventable. It began to seem more like an unsettling pattern than a run of poor luck. Additionally, more and more people are pointing in the same direction. This season's refereeing and officiating have been characterized as dangerous at worst and inept at best. There are missed calls. Players are being put in danger while risky plays are disregarded.
Given Clark's unprecedented star power, her being confined to the Fever's Gamebridge Fieldhouse sidelines was always going to impact ratings, and she was actually there. It was her team. And the fans sent a clear message.
The person who really should get all the blame is Kathy Engelberg. Yes, this is Kathy Engelberg's doing. You know why? Because she has incompetent referees.
What product was left on the court, by the way? An entertainment ghost town. Since the main stars are no longer present, games have become more like national television preseason scrimmages. The arenas are now utterly devoid of energy. In half-empty stadiums, you can hear the lonesome echo of a bouncing ball. Commentators seem stressed out and are frantically attempting to liven up boring, low-scoring games. It would be similar to attending a rock performance only to learn that the band was dismissed and that the sound engineer was now humming into a microphone. The entertainment product that the WNBA is attempting to market is just not entertaining at the moment.
So lads, the All-Star ratings were confirmed, and I have to say, not ideal. Not ideal for the WNBA, and I'll take a look. So, the WNBA All-Star Game had 2.19 million viewers. Like, we can't forget last year it peaked at over 4 million. This, in fact, is less viewership than an average Caitlin Clark game.
This breakdown reveals a serious and perhaps lethal weakness in the league's overall organization. At this point, the WNBA's issue becomes glaringly obvious. The NBA doesn't collapse when a star player like LeBron James or Steph Curry sustains an injury. Rivals rage, storylines persist, and other celebrities take the stage. The NBA has developed depth over the years. In contrast, one or two individuals served as the foundation for the WNBA's entire 2024 resurgence. A sustainable ecosystem was not created by them. They created a delicate attraction, a house of cards that would fall apart the instant a crucial component was taken away.
This should be a straight up wake up call. With the ticket prices dropping, and now you see the show, the ratings fell tremendously. And it was an awful game. So that large percent of people who did not watch, they probably had a better Saturday than everybody else. We just got to be real.
The on-court product isn't the only one having problems. The entire media and marketing infrastructure of the league appears to be malfunctioning. Broadcasters are hanging to ghosts in a holding pattern. They continue to play highlight clips of the absent stars rather than changing course to increase the number of active players. As they attempt to market a game that no longer features its primary protagonists, you can hear the despair in their voices. The WNBA appears to be stuck in a rut, thinking that nostalgia for last month will be sufficient to sell tickets for tonight. This is in contrast to any other professional league that would aggressively market its supporting talents. Viewers are being aggressively reminded of what they're missing by this tactic.
in the three-point contest or the All-Star game, both of which she was planning to do because of a groin injury. This goes right to the Indiana Fever management and leadership as well. Better know whatever consequences the WNBA suffers from Caitlin Clark not being around, as will you.
Particularly on the internet, the quiet is deafening. Whereas social media was once ablaze with passionate argument threads, memes, and viral videos, the digital bustle has entirely disappeared and is now quiet. Online discourse has changed from enthusiasm to criticism, and official post-engagement has collapsed. Complaints over the league's startling downturn, the dull games, and the officiating. Brands spend money on cultural conversation and relevancy. Additionally, the WNBA has neither at the moment. The league has devolved into a virtual ghost town, with the only reverberations being remnants of its former vibrancy.
I'm not going to ignore, nor am I going to take my eyes off of what transpires with the WNBA over the next 2 weeks while Caitlin Clark is out with the quad strain.
All of this is pointing towards the league's worst-case scenario, the ultimate nightmare. The WNBA is currently headed toward a postseason and a championship that few anyone outside of the die-hard fanbase will even be aware is taking place. Imagine a silent arena where a trophy is being lifted. A moment that ought to be the apex of the sport but doesn't have a lasting impact on society. This goes beyond simply losing money during a single poor season. It has to do with the league's most notable accomplishment, losing its cultural significance. It is comparable to a tree falling in an empty forest in sports. An undetected, silent conclusion.
And it was also reported that the Indiana Fever television viewership is also down over 53%. Now, I know a lot of us were expecting some sort of dip since Caitlin Clark has been out with injury, but I don't think all of us were expecting the entire viewership of the entire WNBA to be down.
Fingers invariably begin pointing upward to the very top during a crisis of this size. It is necessary to ask, where is the league's leadership's accountability? The greatest treasure in the league's history was not sufficiently safeguarded during the season under Commissioner Kathy Angelbert's direction. She is directly responsible for the refereeing crisis. Her administration failed to put policies in place that would have protected its stars, and it also failed to change course when those stars eventually vanished. It was a disastrous execution and vision failure. An instance in which the leaders appeared to stand by and watch the house burn down without reaching for a fire extinguisher.
So lads, this is very, very concerning if you're the WNBA coming into the CBA. It is the worst possible thing that can happen, is the ratings coming out. It is the worst possible thing because you cannot work on the assumption anymore that the league's TV deal is going up. You cannot work on that assumption because the ratings are down over 50%. Fever games are down 53% with Clark out, and it's only national televised.
And if the entire collapse wasn't terrible enough, the timing has made it a potentially fatal blow rather than just a calamity. Negotiations for the WNBA's next media rights agreement are about to begin. An agreement with the potential to be a huge franchise-altering payout. Amidst the unparalleled Clark effect, they were set to demand $1 billion. They had a royal flush as they entered that crucial negotiation. They are now arriving empty-handed as a result of this ratings drop. There is no longer any leverage. The numbers are visible to the networks. That billion-dollar fantasy might have just been dashed. A mistake that might limit the league's ability to develop financially during the ensuing 10 years. As a result, the league finds itself at a scary crossroads and facing a dismal future. The figures are honest. There is truth to the empty chairs. The WNBA lost in every quantifiable manner when it bet that it was more than just one player. They failed to defend the very gamers who saved them from extinction, disregarded the warnings, and alienated their new lifeblood. Whether the WNBA can make it through this terrible season isn't the actual question. The question is whether the millions of spectators who came to witness a once-in-a-generation talent will ever find an incentive to return. because it's nearly impossible to win back the audience's faith after that enchantment is gone.